Irene, that slide.
All right, it is 6:02. Welcome, everyone. This is Kristen Vincent, Chair of the Westborough School Committee speaking. Today is Monday, August 31st, 2020. I'll call the meeting of the Westborough School Committee to order. Thank you for joining us this evening at this remote live stream school committee meeting. Due to the impacts of the COVID-19 virus, some aspects of the open meeting law have been suspended. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. In-person attendance. Town officials and Westborough TV have worked together to hold this meeting via televideo conference and broadcast it as such on Westborough TV's government channels. Tonight, the channels are different. It's on Verizon's channel 26 and Charter channel 194 because there's a finance advisory committee meeting happening at the same time. This meeting is also live streamed online at the Westborough TV YouTube channel. Any votes we take this evening will be roll call votes due to the remote participation. And due to the remote format, any citizens' requests to speak at a school committee meeting need to be done through email, and you can email the committee with your comments or your requests to school-committee@westboroughk12.org. You can also use that email address to make a request to speak at a future school committee meeting during the citizens request portion of the meeting. Thank you to Westborough TV for covering the broadcast tonight. And as a reminder, a recording of this meeting can be accessed at any time from the Westborough TV website or their YouTube channel. We have with us tonight Superintendent Amber Bach, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Daniel Mayer, Director of Finance and Administration Irene Oliver, Steve Durrett, Vice Chair of the Westborough School Committee, and school committee members Sarah Dulé, Lisa Edinburgh, and Raghu Nandan. Jen Benton is on. She's our school committee recording secretary, and we have staff from Westborough TV who are handling the live stream and the recording of this meeting. This is our traditional kickoff the school year school committee meeting. The school committee historically meets in the evening, the same day that the staff and faculty return back to school and begin the school year. So it's usually our first meeting back from the summer and usually just a few days before students return to school. But faculty and staff did start their school year today, and so we're happy to see activity back in the building. And we decided to keep this meeting as regularly scheduled, because there's a lot to update everyone about. And then we will continue our usual Wednesday evening meetings during the school year that occur roughly every other week. So our agenda this evening is as follows. We'll begin with an approval of minutes from August 12th and August 17th. Then we'll have our superintendent's report and reports from the assistant superintendent and the director of finance and administration. We'll have school committee member reports and a building projects update. We don't have any citizens requests tonight. We will have an opening, a reopening update, and then a financial update just due to all of the financial issues we're facing opening the school year. We will review a new draft capital planning policy. We will have a transportation update. We'll vote on a new school year calendar and a supplementary parent calendar to help us all keep these dates and transitions straight. We'll vote to appoint a delegate and an alternative delegate to the MASC 2020 annual meeting, which will happen virtually this year. And then we will vote the chair to annually review and approve previously held executive session minutes, meeting minutes for release. And we do have a need for an executive session tonight to finalize some contracts. So first we can start with the approval of the minutes. We need to approve the August 12th and the August 17th. So we'll take them one at a time. Is there a motion for the August 12th meeting?
I move the minutes of August 12th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I can second that, Sarah Toulay.
Thanks. Is there any discussion about these minutes? All right, we'll do a roll call vote and we'll start with Sarah.
Toulay, yes.
Raghu?
Nandan, yes.
Lisa?
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve?
Durrett, yes.
And Vincent, yes. So that's 5-0 approving those minutes. And how about for the August 17th, 2020 minutes?
I move the minutes of August 17th, 2020.
Thank you.
Sarah, I can second the minutes from August 17th, 2020.
Great. Any discussion about those? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Sarah?
Toulay, yes.
Raghu?
Nandan, yes.
Lisa?
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve?
Durrett, yes.
And Vincent, yes. So 5-0 approving the August 17th, 2020 regular session minutes. Thanks for that. So we will move to our superintendent's report. Amber, you might have something to share. I know you're going to be sharing later about the reopening update too.
Thank you. So it is a pleasure to see you all for what would have been our opening meeting. And I just want to compliment you on the energy and focus and dedication that you brought to the intensive work of the summer that it took for us to have an agreement on the table, a plan that we could implement, and the first steps in place to greet our school year. And that came with the hard work and vigilance and support that you brought to that. And I just want to say thank you. We are immensely pleased to be opening and to be in a place where all the pieces came together. I will be providing more during our more formalized update. And I just want to highlight that our next meeting on the 9th, you'll start to get some more targeted reports that I'm not going to speak about tonight. So I've slotted for Johanna DiCarlo to come and give us an update on the development of athletics, and also Director Sherry Stevens to come and talk about the implementation of special education, given the range of conversations we've had up to date with families. So those will be important updates at our next meeting where we'll start to get the detail. And at that time, we'll continue with implementation updates. I imagine that by then we'll have a first look at data dashboard, kind of gathering and tracking, all those types of pieces. So those are coming at your next meeting, and I'll just use that as my highlight for tonight.
Great, thanks. We look forward to getting back to some updates about what else is going on in the district and hearing from some other folks at our next meeting. Daniel, I know you're also going to share a lot. Do you have anything to add right now?
No, I'll just give my update when we talk about reopening schools and also school calendar.
Okay, sounds good. Irene, I know you're also sharing some other pieces. Do you have anything else to share right now?
Not at this point.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll move to our school committee member reports. We'll start with Sarah. Do you have anything to share?
I don't really have a report, but I just have a quick, another thank you to a department. I know Amber mentions them sometimes, but I was able to hang a lot with the Buildings and Grounds Department on Friday, helping coordinate the PPE, and Kelly Giacopello was fantastic. She started ordering all that stuff, for lack of a better word, back in June, and I know Irene, you guys were on it with the numbers and the amount we needed, and it was all coordinated and distributed to the school. So I just want to thank her and her team for setting that up for us, because that was huge. So I appreciate it. And a shout out to Peter and the crew from Armstrong, the custodians. I hung out with them on Friday and we had fun.
They're so funny. Yeah, they're good guys.
It was a good time. Yes.
That's
So thank you
awesome.
everyone for that. It was great. And
That's
all.
great, Sarah. Thanks for all your help with that too. And yeah, we have great custodians, and so that's good that we were able to hang out with them a little bit. Raghu, do you have anything you'd like to share tonight?
No, I don't at this point.
Okay, thanks. Lisa, anything?
So I wanted to mention there have been so many staff members and faculty and members that have really gone above and beyond this summer. Everything with the reopening, the leadership team, the custodial staff. But you may not have heard that we actually had a math program going on much of the summer for rising first to sixth graders. There was a Zern program set up by Jenny Dean, coordinator of math K through 6, and teacher for Armstrong, Kelly White. They created this program that they had over 600 students who completed the first round. I'm not sure how many completed the second round, but they just did their final rewards for it. But it was also supported by the K through 3 parent groups and the Mill Pond parent group and the Westborough Education Foundation to get this program off the ground. And it was quite successful to have so many participants really doing math throughout the summer. And also I wanted to give a shout out to assistant principal from Mill Pond, Jeff Slomsky, who also helped with that program. It was pretty extraordinary. So just wanted to mention other things that are going on during the summer.
That's great. Yeah, it's important to know that there's lots of stuff going on around town with the schools, and everything just didn't stop. So yeah, and I kept seeing updates about the Zern prizes and motivating the kids to keep going with that. So that's great that we had such good participation with that. Steve, do you have anything to share now, or do you want to wait for building project updates?
I'll wait for building project updates.
All right,
Which
thanks.
probably isn't far away.
No, it is not. And as far as school committee member reports, I just want to welcome back all the teachers and staff driving around today. I was so happy to see cars in the parking lots and people going in and out the front door, and just seeing activity around the schools. It just really is exciting. You can feel like the humidity's gone, and you can feel like the fall in the air, and it's just really kind of all coming together. It's feeling like what's supposed to be happening. So it felt good to drive around town and see the schools busy and staff there, and lots of staff joining virtually as well. So it's nice to have that option for folks who are transitioning back to their school year. Okay, so that's all I had. So we can move on to building project updates, and I'll turn it over to Steve because he's our expert in that.
Well, the focus, of course, during the summer has been fails. And I'm pleased to report that the concrete foundations are coming to completion shortly, within a few weeks, and that we anticipate receiving structural steel beginning in the middle of September, probably 2 loads a day for approximately 30-something trips over a period of 2 weeks. So it'll be busy for that period of time. And so we'll actually start seeing stuff above the fence line, which for most people is very difficult because they can't see what's going on in there. But I will point out that for those who get to the school website in the fails section of the school website, there is information both in terms of our minutes as well as an overflight using a drone that was done by Westborough TV, which is quite indicative, I think, of showing all the stuff that's going on the site. One of the issues that is a COVID-19 related problem is that construction workers have not been allowed to carpool in regards to COVID until some future time when the state removes that restriction. For us, the design of the program when we have a number of trades on the job was that we had made arrangements for construction workers to park in parking lots along Route 9 and then have them ferried to the site. Now, because they can't carpool, they have to get close to the site. And one of the issues associated with that is where do they park? And we're working on that. We don't really need a solution of that until perhaps the middle of October. And we do have a series of different options, of which unfortunately they all cost money. And which brings me, I guess, to the next point. We finally got to the point in the job where we have a guaranteed maximum price, since the town chose, or the school building committee chose, to go that route, which under state law allows us to hire a construction manager after due diligence and the process of bidding. They're allowed to give us a guaranteed maximum price for which they will not overrun. The unfortunate story, however, is that at this point, that number is roughly 100 to 120,000 over what our guaranteed price from MSBA was. We still have options to reduce that total cost, but at this current time, we're roughly 100 and something $1,000 over budget, which means that to pay for that, we will have to take that money out of the contingency of the project, and that amount of money will not receive a matching amount of money from the MSBA. And so, after a year's worth of discussion, bids, rebids, and a whole bunch of other stuff, I guess I'm pleased we got that close. It's been a terrible period of time in regards to bidding, not only for this particular project, but for other projects that the school district has had out to bid. And we'll talk about some of those at a later meeting when the focus isn't on going back to school. So that's my story, and we're doing well. I think we're all pleased that we're, quote unquote, almost out of the ground, and that progress has been quite steady on the site, and those who look at the drone overflight information will see that that is truly the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And yeah, it's an incredible amount of work that's been going on over there. They've had great weather. I just think, kind of everything's falling into place for that. I drove by there the other day, and it's amazing to see the concrete foundation. You can kind of get a sense of where the school's going to sit, and it's pretty impressive. So, and thank you for the update on the additional costs. And I know that it was definitely a challenge with the prices fluctuating for different things and going up and being higher than we had originally anticipated. So we will just have to keep an eye on that. Thanks, Steve. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So we will move on in our agenda to, well, citizens request is next, but we don't have any citizens requests tonight. So we can move on to the reopening update. We're a little early, but I think we can move on to that now.
All right. So Daniel and I, and Suzanne and different people worked on this a little bit today, and Irene, to just think about the salient points of updates for you to walk through our opening planning. I think that one of the things I would note is I walked buildings, I hobbled buildings because I was using my boot foot, but I walked buildings this weekend to be able to do room checks to make sure that things were ready, and did a half on Saturday and then the rest on Sunday, and felt good that our buildings look very, very good. To Sarah's points about, our custodial teams, I mean, they've had more time. It was a different summer for many of them, and end of the year, adding some challenges and then alleviating work in others. And so they really have done an excellent job. They did a lot of painting. They did a lot of reorganizing, and then they were ready to tackle the up speed to making quick decisions around needing to pull furniture out of classrooms or move things around based upon the delineation of how people want to set up their rooms for the hybrid. So, a lot of last minute work, which always happens, but the buildings overall look really excellent. So I'm pleased with that. And I think if we step ahead in the slides, our goal tonight is to give you a picture of an update on students, focusing on numbers in the different models and answering questions you have around that, and providing information around just preparation for them, class sizes, and general kind of where things stand. And Daniel will take point on giving you some key details there. And then also we'll take questions and you can interject at that time and interact around student updates. After that, we'll roll to faculty updates and we'll focus on the delineation of staffing to see how people have spread out, to how we've been able to staff now for the hybrid, the remote, the completion of readiness for opening doors, and the impact on different pieces related to cost and also just preparation. And then we'll do some implementation updates with a focus on the kinds of things that happened today with faculty trainings, which was a big part of the day, and a highlight around some of the next 10 days of PD and just talking through with you some of the things that we plan on covering. So first up, I guess I would take it to the next slide and we'll start with student updates, and I'll have Daniel focus on some of these key pieces with you and give you a picture where we are.
Sure. You guys can hear me, right? I cannot, when I'm in present mode, I don't see your faces when I'm doing this. So what I wanted to do is give you an update on our numbers for the number of students that are in the hybrid versus the remote models, and number of teachers that are therefore participating in those programs to serve the kids. And so it's informative to break it down by grade span, because the percent of students goes down as we go up in the age of the students. So as you can see here, that there's 38% of our students are their parents opted to have them participate in remote in kindergarten through grade 3. And it's 28% and also 27% between grades 4 through 8. So, you know, those middle grades are kind of in the same ballpark. And then when you get to the high school, it's about 10% of our students. So averaged across the districts, we have a quarter of our students, 923 students, are participating in the remote program. There's 2,771 students in the hybrid model. And in order to service those students, you can see the number of teachers that we needed to assign to the remote students. And it's broken down by grade level, and going across to the far right, you can see we have 42 faculty members, and these are core subject faculty members who are servicing these students on a full-time basis. So their responsibility, like those 19 teachers at K3, is to only service the remote students. And then there are additional faculty, and I didn't put in the FTEs here because we're needing to figure out exactly, you know, what percent of the different special needs teachers' time and para educators' time and our art teachers and our PE teachers are all servicing those students. So this is, again, just the core, like at the grades K through 6, those are homeroom teachers. 7 through 8, we have subject matter specialist teachers like science, math, social studies, English, and the same at the high school. So that gives you a sense of, you know, it's obviously a very big undertaking to pull this off, and is requiring a lot of coordination, a lot of our attention to make sure that we are operating in these two different models at the same time. You know, our administrators, when they're planning schedules and determining who's going to be working with which kids, we had to do a lot of moving around with that faculty, and we're still in the midst of, you know, with the schedules, getting them to look the way they need to in order to make sure everybody's serviced properly. And to that point, I mean, we'll talk a little later about calendars, but I think it's imperative that the parents realize, you know, we didn't get their final say until about a week ago in terms of what they wanted from their kids, for their kids, in terms of remote versus hybrid, which means then we needed to move faculty and readjust all our planning. So I know that parents are, and I understand it, impatient for or eager to get their children's teachers' assignments, but it's still a work in progress here, given everything that we're in the middle of doing. So we are hoping K through 6 comes out by the end of the week with teacher, homeroom teacher names and assignments. The middle school and the high school are more complicated to schedule, and we don't anticipate those schedules being released until mid to late next week. So
I would just,
my,
Daniel, can I hop in and compliment two pieces here?
Sure.
One of the things that we've taken comments on, and we want to make sure that we reiterate really clearly to all of our families, which is every student and every family in this district, we are focusing on strong programming for you and getting our staffing in place so that we could delineate who was going to be teaching what was an anchor first piece. And I think I understand everyone's anxiety, but I think it's important to realize that those students who are attending the hybrid, they don't know their class delineations, their schedules, who's their class teacher, who's in their class, and neither does anyone in the standalone. So it's equitably behind for both. Okay, I think it's very important that when we were speaking a lot about the hybrid model, we were focusing on implementation of safety protocols and procedures for bringing a group in. We really weren't talking about their instructional programming at any higher level than we were talking about our remote program. And so I think it's important that they know that both are getting a full look, both will be strong Westborough programs, and as soon as staffing is delineated, which it now is, those teachers, when they started arriving today, we're getting into working groups to start to organize instructional planning for whatever model they're in. So again, I just want to emphasize every student in Westborough will get their information on the same timetable.
One of the things I also want to point out is that at the high school, we do have Westborough teachers teaching. A significant number of these students are going to get a Westborough bio teacher, chemistry teacher, history teacher, and also math teacher. And we're hoping for English and world language too. But we're still, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, we weren't sure how much we were going to have to rely on VHS versus Westborough teachers. But I am feeling that, I know that the high school is working very hard at this, and we're optimistic that a large percentage of these students are going to be serviced by Westborough teachers.
And just so you get a sense of really the intensity of what it takes to pull that off, and one of the reasons I was just getting here right before the start of this meeting is Suzanne Kenny, the HR director, Brian Callahan, the high school principal, was calling her to go through gaps in his scheduling and staffing that he's looking for. So again, it's a very, very fluid, very intensive, quick, responsive model right now, and kind of Herculean in terms of what it takes to really get it done. So I think everyone's patience, we really appreciate. There's definitely a sense of concrete movement of pacing for that stuff starting to gel, though, in terms of exact people picking up different sections. And I think the momentum's there to have those done by the end of next week.
Okay.
Can we ask a quick question, or should we wait until the end, or what's
No, I think we should do it by section, yeah.
So I do have a question about that middle school 5, the 5 remote core subject teachers for the 165 remote students. I think it stands out as different than the others in terms of its ratio of students to teacher. And I recognize, so I think the answer is, and maybe you'll explain it, but I think it's because the program is so different, where you have core teachers teaching many students versus younger grades that might not be, or I'll let you answer. Do you see how that could, some people?
No, I see exactly what you're saying. I mean, generally a team has about 100 students in the middle school, right? And they share the 4 core subject teachers. And so about 100 of those students are going to be serviced by 4 teachers. And then, I mean, I probably did my math a little bit wrong here, but basically Jack said, then we're going to take part of different FTEs of existing teachers on another team to service the other. I mean, he's probably cringing if he's listening to it because I'm not like, I don't know if it divides to 100 and then the 65, but basically he has one whole team of teachers servicing, so 4 teachers full time, and then he has another 2 or 4 teachers. I'm not sure whether they're teaching 2 subjects, like one's teaching social studies and English and another's teaching math and science, or whether it's 4 different teachers, each teaching the different subjects. But he is basically, it's not as clean as the 19 for the K3 are teaching exclusively remote, the 4th, 6th exclusively remote, and at the middle school, 4 are exclusively remote. And then there's some pieces and parts of other teachers who are teaching sections. So I think it's more like my bad math, but the class size information when I looked at it was on par with the other grade levels. So I know that there's not like this big difference in terms of, teacher to student ratio. It's at the middle school.
There is some crossing over too, Lisa and team here, that is different than in the past. For example, if we started with the core staffing of people who we needed to place into the remote for a range of HR considerations, and then people had requested to be in it. So there was like a whole array of people that ended up going to that pool. But in some cases, it crossed buildings. So like there's a configuration where one of the art is actually a high school art teacher who's picking up like 4th through 12th. So she's doing like a conglomeration of art coursework and electives remotely, as an example. Amazing teacher, will do a great job. But again, some of it's, done in a variety of kind of creative ways. We have a couple teachers where, for example, highly specialized teachers that have a elective section might be teaching in the remote because we need them in the remote, but they'll open up the hybrid kids to take it remotely if they need to cover that section if we can't find a teacher to do it. So there's a lot of really interesting and innovation coverages in place with the goal of, again, working with the staff we have.
Now, that answers a lot. I thought that the chart didn't explain, the delineation, and if someone were looking at just the ratios, there would be
that's smart.
an outcry, and I would understand it unless it was explained. So thank you very much.
I mean, in looking, as I was answering your question, to be a little bit more specific here, this is what Jack told me, is that, so while there is one whole team servicing, like I said, four teachers, there is both the red team and the green team. Each teacher on those 2 teams, one is a 7th grade team and the other is an 8th grade team, is picking up a section. So that would mean 1 7th grade section, 1 8th grade section for each subject. So yeah, my numbers are slightly off there in terms of how I presented it, but there is not, like I was suggesting, teachers teaching across 2 subjects. It looks like everybody is teaching within their subject area specialty, which is good.
No, that's helpful, very helpful. Because we never, when we look at a whole teacher, like a FTE, we think of it as 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. That there's and that's the part you can't see in this breakdown. And so there's a lot of parts, especially at the middle school and high school. There's parts in the 4th through 6th too, but more so.
Yep.
So in thinking about the student participation in models and where it stands now, we closed the ability for families to move. And at this point, just like we don't let people hop around classes and we say, this is your schedule or this is your class, we've sustained then that plan for where we are with currently beginning the school year. So we're steaming forward. How about if we step forward and we can come back to general other questions? So the next piece at play is faculty updates on where we are. This plays off of the slide that Daniel was just talking about. The staffing for extraordinary circumstances, as I call it, really looking at needing to staff multiple models, two full different models, covering costs, of course, in that staffing delineation is the focus of an important part of your work and my work that we share together in budgeting, and Irene's daily moment-to-moment work. So in looking at the staffing numbers in the two models, we'll focus on the fact that we will be covering costs utilizing two anchor grants. The 102 grant, which is Irene's going to talk about this more in depth when she does her financial update, and you'll see the delineation of that number. That's the 849,000 plus a little bit more grant that is comes to the school side for us to leverage offset against COVID expenditures related to this whole implementation. And that number is delineated and given to us. That was the number that Westborough received, and we've now applied for that grant, and she submitted it today. So we'll talk a little bit about the positions we're putting against that grant to help cover us. Then you have the interplay of the 4,900 grant and the 4,800 grant, which are municipal town-based grants for the FEMA and CARES, which you've heard people talk about a lot. And Irene can talk more about that when we come to that section. But there's an interplay between these two grants and how we do offsets for cost and expenditures. And we can talk more about that when we go to the financial piece. But I want to skip to the next slide and look at staffing numbers with you. So in the rough numbers of the update, there are 7 high school positions, 3 Gibbons positions, and 4 K-6 positions. So we're roughly looking at about 14 FTE, and then some parts of paras, neonates, a range of other types of coverages, all of which we're pushing onto the 102 grant. And again, you just saw these lining up with what Daniel was showing you. And the reasons for these needs, of course, you can see is to backfill hybrid positions that still require coverage, and then additional remote learning positions while we need to have a full course load to those students. So the staffing delineations, I think, have gone as tightly as we can manage them, but it's going to take 14 solid FTE positions for us to manage this platform this year. I think we were creative, as Daniel was just highlighting. We'll be available to talk, more about this moving forward, but these are uncovered budget positions, and that's why you've seen these emergency grants coming forward for things like PPE, staffing, and other things. So when Irene comes to her financial piece, we'll look at that and she'll talk it through. Right now, that 102 grant we made the majority of that as best we could. We pushed the majority of staffing costs onto that. And that grant actually closes out December 31st. So that will cover 1/2 of those staffing positions. The second half of those staffing positions, we're keeping our fingers crossed that the 4,900 grant or the 4,800 grant, I think the 49 CARES grant, I think Leah is keeping her fingers crossed as well, that the delineation of that grant would be rolled forward, but they haven't said it so publicly yet. So we're going to pretend and plan as if it weren't going to happen. We're going to plan conservatively for having to do other cuts and transitional changes that will let us absorb the second half of those salary positions in case that grant doesn't move forward. And Irene will look for a range of other offsets. And she's got some additional funds that she's applying for in the grant now, which could do some offsets to absorb some of that salary potentially. But again, I think we'll keep you posted on that. Everyone's facing this. All the districts are facing this concern, which is both of these major grant funding options end in January and leave you hanging for half a year. So I think there is certainly an anticipated sense that some of these might be extended. We're expending the 102 grant in full, pressing all the salaries onto it that we can, holding budget-based salary on our side to then, manage based upon how things move forward. That'll be ongoing updates from us as the year progresses with more detailed reports to you. But again, we just nailed the staffing in the last 7 days. So, there's a lot of moving parts. Do you have questions about that, or do you want to keep moving? We can cover that when we hop over to Irene. You good?
We can keep moving on that. Yeah.
All right. So let's move to the next slide. So one of the other things that we want to provide highlights on for tonight is just what the early implementation of this opening plan is shaping up to be. I'm going to hit on the training that we did today and give you some highlights of the types of things that were incorporated into it and work that you did and that the state's requiring around both our MOU, but also the quality of training our staff to make sure they feel ready. I'm going to give you some quick snapshots on that. A daily exit ticket, some professional development highlights from Daniel, and a reminder that the special education support for high-risk students is getting special attention from us the week of September 15th through 18th. And then when Sherry comes to speak with us at the next meeting, not next week, but at our next school committee meeting, she'll highlight more about that to you on the 9th around the types of attention that we're providing to students in our high risks category. I can talk more about that when we get, if you have questions around that, but I think Sherry will be able to provide a good, thoughtful update when she comes. So Daniel, let's give them a snapshot of the training. So one of the important, we're going to click.
You don't want to talk about how cute this kid is?
He is so cute. He was
So
in
cute.
the summer programming, and I think
I
it's really.
I really like this camp. It's fun, he says.
The adaptability of kids is so amazing. That's why I chose pictures that were from this summer where they're all in masks and distanced and still having fun. He is cute. So next slide, faculty, next pieces. So we did a training today. All colleagues across the district did a virtual training. We emphasize you stay home when you're sick. I think there's like 6 slides in there that keep saying that. Clicking forward quickly through these. It gave you a type of kind of humor, focus, but also targeted directions around not right ways to wear your masks and then keep moving forward, right ways to wear your masks. Looking at the attestation sheets and suitability to work, which has to be filled out each day, that they need to indicate that they're prepared and ready to be at work following those criteria. Next slide. They also had to then look at understanding that when they travel outside of Mass, that they have criteria they need to follow and that there's protocols that are important for everyone to be aware of. One of the important things that we have to pay attention to are which states are included and which aren't. And right now, Rhode Island, which is very close by and a very favored spot for people to dash down to, is on the hot list. And it's not a state that's exempted from the travel ban in terms of needing to follow the criteria for quarantining. So we've been doing some interaction with people around that and getting everybody into a good place. Daniel and I anticipate putting out a communication next week to families and faculty, which really emphasizes, and you've said this multiple times, we all share the responsibility of making sure that we have a safe and well-implemented school year. And that means families, students, faculty. We all need to take responsibility for the proper social distancing protocols, travel protocols, and keeping yourself safe. And that doesn't mean we don't want you to have fun as a family or as an individual, but it's important for all of us to make sure that we realize the responsibility of these protocols will be as successful as everyone's efforts. And so I think we will be emphasizing that with a positive focus, but certainly with a sense of responsibility that everybody needs to think about. I imagine pushing that out, I think, next week. Pushing forward, other things we shared with them, that they have to fill out a visitor log and that they keep an attendance sheet on their desk so we can do protocol trackings. Keep going. The other thing we asked of them was around physical distancing. We gave them a lot of highlights on how to follow that. You can keep clicking forward pretty quickly, Daniel. Distancing for students, although there's a whole bunch more on students tomorrow. They focused on themselves today. Keep going. We also looked at maintaining physical distancing and range and what kind of ranges were good for adults, what kind of ranges were good for different types of work, when you come together for short bursts of work, and just the different protocols for how to live together thoughtfully and respectfully. And then we also looked at additional range of PPE for people that have highly specialized staff. They all received this gear in their bags that were prepped and that Sarah was talking about earlier. If you keep rolling forward, Daniel. There was a video on mask skills and how to apply them. There was hygiene protocols and building ventilation. This is an area of special focus where I think faculty have continued to have a range of questions. And I think, we're continuing to answer them. We're continuing to look at, to make sure that we can be confident in the levels of preparation for our HVAC systems, that they have been cleaned, that they are operational, that they are pushing 50% of that air intake through the vents that we said we wanted, as well as then the amount of air they expel. And so there's a balance there. And I think we've done a lot of continued checking. We will put out more updates to people on that. I think that it's important for them to have confidence that the reports are complete and our actions are complete. Changing, next one, disinfecting and cleaning. They went through all those protocols. You can click forward. They also had to, from there, Dan, just keep them rolling. We really emphasized for them the importance of also part of health and safety is how they care for themselves and others, and to be kind to themselves and to recognize that, these are extraordinary times and we're fortunate to have such good colleagues, but taking care of each other is important. And I think there is a theme around our own personal, social, emotional needs and also those of students. We looked at if they have stress and anxiety, that there are counseling services available and resources, and we emphasize that as a part of the core training. So that's just a snapshot on the types of stuff that they covered today in their manual trainings. And then the daily exit ticket for the next 2 weeks, we're providing a kind of set of 2 questions, something you thought went well today, you felt good about, and something you have a concern or question about. And when I came into the meeting, we'd already had, I think it'd been out about an hour, and we had about 290 responses. So each day we'll push that out, and it's for that rapid kind of planning and support that we want to demonstrate we're open to. We'll feed follow through to labor board as kind of a benchmark of feedback that's circulating around how people are feeling. It's nice because you pick up a whole range of things as well, not just people's concerns, but what they also think are going, what they think is going well. And I think today, both Daniel and I were saying, we thought the exit tickets, when we were looking through the snapshots, felt good. I think people felt good to get in their buildings, felt like relief in some areas, worries in other about curriculum, a lot of curriculum worries, and just the time and energy they need to plan. And with that, I think we'll look at the discussion of the 10 days of professional planning and professional development, and I'll let Daniel give you those highlights.
Sure. So, it is this combination of offering workshops to help our teachers continue to learn tech tools that they could benefit from learning and using. And, if they have questions, so we're providing opportunities for our paraprofessionals to go and take those workshops too. Our curriculum coordinators are meeting with all the teachers from kindergarten through grade 6 to talk about pacing and the expectations in terms of the content coverage and what the home time, learning at home during the hybrid, for the hybrid students looks like versus learning in school. Same for the remote teachers, talking about how the importance of the first few weeks of school is going to be building up stamina. We have to all remember these students, our children, have not been in a rigorous school environment for a long time. And this spring, while there was schooling that was going on, it wasn't as rigorous as it's going to be this school year. And so there's a lot of discussion about building up their stamina and routines and expectations in terms of how to set up their home environment for success and how to pace themselves in the first few weeks so we don't lose students as they go. And at the secondary level, 7 through 12, it's the same kind of discussion. It's being led by the department heads with their faculty. Again, how should learning look in our schools? How should it look when the students are at home? What do we do to support success in both environments? And so I feel like we've got a very well thought out plan for the 10 days in terms of this combination of having structured the conversations and workshops, and also providing them with resources that we found that they can tap into and use to help sort of give them creative ideas for how they can structure their curriculum differently. There is, teachers are creatures, just like we all are, of habits and routines, and we sort of have our standard ways of delivering instruction that we've done over the years. And so this change in terms of making sure kids are successful, as I pointed out to the school committee in our report a few weeks back, it is not the same kind of teaching, and the teachers really they understand that, and it requires them to create. They can't just take out their old lessons and presentations and give them in the same way. They really have to recreate how the learning time and the activities during the learning time is going to take place. So there's a lot of work to be done. I'm very confident that the teachers are going to do well with these 10 days, and they'll be ready to greet the kids when school starts. That's it for me.
So, I have a quick question.
Yep.
I followed this. What the piece that I was looking for more details was the contact tracing. That's very important, I think, because God forbid somebody comes down with COVID, the contact tracing becomes exceptionally important. That
yeah.
Yeah, no, I can take that one, Raghu, and speak about that. So I feel like one of the things, and we talked about this during the early emerging phases of our report, which is we had our nurses on the ground working with the Board of Health doing contact tracing at the town level. They're skilled at it. They know the protocol. And when we presented to the Board of Health last week, we clarified that contact tracing will be in place and that we will follow certainly HIPAA and privacy guidelines, but that we will be utilizing it to track using the protocol that the Board of Health uses at the town level. It will be from the microcosm of the school level pushed out to make sure that we are doing that contact tracing at the individual level to work on that radius of impact in terms of that work. And so right now that would be our nurses working in coordination with the nurse leader and the Board of Health. And should we need more support on that, we would add it in. But we were clear at the Board of Health that that would certainly be something that would fall on our side of the fence. And Irene's carrying, some additional funds in that grant, as she said, in case we need to subcontract with someone to help us do some of that work, but we would tackle that pretty intensely.
Yeah, my hope is that we really pay a lot of attention to that because that's important.
No, I agree. Certainly our faculty as well. There'll be many, many pieces we have to hold on to tracking.
Our protocols are very specific about if somebody it presents or has been knows that they have been in contact with somebody that had COVID, we have a whole set of interview and removal protocols to basically find out who has been in contact with that particular student within the last couple of days. And then, it's very well laid out and very specific. So I can point. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And I also think, like, for example, the CDC and DSE, they went back and forth on the delineation of what was a close contact at a class level, at a classroom level, in terms of elementary cohorts where they're together all day. And at one point they said they were, and then they said they weren't. And so when we called the Board of Health, our local Board of Health said we would like to maintain the higher standard of carrying that class as a shared contact. And so we would do contact tracing across that group, and then as it leaks out of that classroom if need be. So we're watching things closely, and the protocols are being checked with the Board of Health to make sure that we're ready to implement them as needed. Other questions you have right now in terms of the overall update we provided tonight?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Susan Kenny, our Director of HR who has been working so tirelessly. First of all, I'm so glad we have a director of HR. That the district made the decision to have that position a few years ago. It was very, very strategic thinking there. And I just want to, commend the work that she's been doing to support our faculty and helping them get resources that they need and help them make decisions about what's best for them, and all the work she's done on the health and safety planning. She's definitely a key member in that. Also, shout out to high school administrators, so principals, vice principals, creating that schedule. Just any regular high school schedule, rolling it over from one year to another takes several months. And then to make changes to the high school schedule sometimes takes 6 months study and some trials and research, and we're asking them to do it in such a short amount of time. So definitely kudos to them. I know they're working on overtime over there to make the high school schedule work. And then to all the administrators and principals on their creative staffing solutions. I think in every building, they're thinking, who can do what and how can we make this work for our students who are in the building, for our students who are at home working remotely. And I think it's that creativity that's going to make this work. And then Amber, to your point about kind of we're all in this together and it's all our responsibilities to help keep everyone in our community safe. I went on a walk with my daughter last night and we were just walking around downtown and we walked by, we could hear at first this like very lively volleyball game going on in someone's backyard. And it was a bunch of kids. They looked like they were high schoolers. And so then we walked by between two houses and could see the volleyball game going on. And most of the kids were wearing masks. And they were out back in the early evening playing this great, fun game of volleyball. And I was like, that's it. That's what we do. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have social time. We're going to do it outside. We're going to wear masks. We're going to make it work. And it just made me feel really good walking by that and seeing that. So, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's a ton of good going on. And I think emphasizing that and working off of it and leveraging it is certainly our focus for the year.
Yeah.
Why don't we keep moving?
Can I just for a second? I just want to echo what Kristen was saying about our administrative staff. I'm really, I'm honored to work with the principals we have. I just think they have not complained.
Oh,
and it's been an amazingly difficult summer, and they're working tirelessly.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to all of them.
Well, and to you, Daniel, and the whole team. I mean, everybody's been crushing huge hours here to make this work, and just all hours, picking up the phone and nonstop through the weekends. The number of principals, I said I was doing walkthroughs. They all wanted to meet me there and walk through with me. People are committed to their faculties and being ready, and to our families. I have never seen a set of team work as hard as they have. So I agree, Daniel. It's been pretty impressive. And Irene too, busy at work, keeping our numbers rolling here. So why don't we transition to financial and let Irene give you a snapshot of that 102 grant, which was submitted today, because it's carrying a lot of the financial offset to protect us.
Yeah, definitely. And Irene, we couldn't be doing this work without you either. And considering the scope of your responsibilities in terms of not just the budget and the finances, but administration and buildings and grounds and transportation, it's pretty incredible. So it's no wonder that you are on our agenda multiple times every time we meet, because you have so much to report out on, because you're responsible for so much. So we're thankful that you're here tonight to share with us a few updates. So why don't you go ahead and you can get started with the financials.
Well, thank you. I like that compliment. In my job, you don't always get the thank you. So tonight I want to give you a financial update. I want to remind you of the grants that we have. Of course, the 102, and I'll go into that in a little more detail. That's the school reopening grant. And then the ESSER, which is that stipend for summer training and K screening. We've already spent a considerable amount of money of that. That's $80,519. And Daniel, I think we've already spent over $70,000 of that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
And then, okay. And then we have the Remote Learning Technology Essentials Grant, and that was just submitted last Friday. That's $7,998. So the 102 grant was uploaded today, so that was successful. We'll find out later, that full allocation has been approved. The total amount is $849,150. So here it is on the screen. So these are the categories that DESE puts in all budget grant applications. And not every one of the categories is listed here. I only listed what we applied for under that particular category. So the first category is the stipends. We have $3,500 to support remote learning. That's 7 people at $500 a piece. Our contracted services, that would be your salaries that Amber was talking about earlier, the 14 individuals where we need to cover those salaries with our long-term subs. It's approximately $409,000. We have about $84,000 that I put in there extra because we anticipate we'll need the funding. And if there's some other emergency that we might need to supply a sub for. This is to cope with the 2 platform instruction. And then we have screening and assessment of students and their learning gaps. This is $131,946. That would be to go, this would be for the special needs students where we're just screening them to make sure we can identify the learning gaps there and support them in that way. Supplies and materials, there's $100,000 here for PPE for custodian, student, and staff. There was $200,000 on this grant on this line item, but I moved it over to the FEMA CARES Act so that we would have more funding in the salary line item. There's $14,950 for tables for the cafe, social distancing. And then in our other costs category, there's $20,400 for rental of trailer containers and tents for outside classrooms. So each of the schools, now that they've got all these, specialty learning furniture in there that we've been, staggering the purchasing of that over the years. Now we have to go back to the desk model. So we need to move these pieces of furniture somewhere, and we can't keep them in the hallways because of the fire code. So we're renting out 40-foot and 20-foot trailers to support that. And then there's $20,000 additional transportation for social distancing for athletics. We believe that we'll need to supply another bus just for the logistics alone. And then $67,270 for tech for the card readers for outdoor classrooms.
So that's where they increased the door exits so that teachers could go outside with kids and take kids out for mask breaks. And so all those scan cards, those door readers, were in a pretty limited set of entry and exit points. So John increased them to doors where they know across buildings people are going to want to take groups of kids out and be able to get back in and out quickly. So that's one of the pieces of that.
So, and the other thing I wanted to bring up was the CARES Act. So I've begun to log in some expenses there, and that's a reimbursement grant. So we spend it, and then the town reports it to the state and asks for a reimbursement. So we're going to spend it out of a specific account. And when the money comes back for reimbursement, it'll offset those expenses. So this also is ending December 30th, but like Amber had indicated, the town believes that they might have an extension on this. So if so, we'll continue to shift the salaries over to this grant. Right now, I'm up to $243,493. Now, this has not been submitted yet. Leah has submitted some previous expenses in a report from the summer and the spring that we, mostly PPE, in technology. So we should know if we're going to get a reimbursement on that. I don't know if I mentioned that the 102 grant also ends December 30th. So we're going to spend up this grant before that time.
And I think, Irene, again, like we're giving you kind of wide strokes here on this grant, guys. I mean, the 491-084 has, you know, pieces, parts of other staffing needs in it to support stuff. There's some cover. I mean, that you can't just like look at that amount and divide it up by that's not gonna, that's not how it works.
Right.
And so I'm watching the math people like take those numbers down, and I want to make sure that you aren't confused. We carried in there some subcontracted services. For example, the screening and assessment work, some of that staffing, so it goes under the contracted services, but it's for special education supports. We looked at needing to do some additional stipends for the half-day Fridays potentially, when we have some students with intensive needs coming in and other groups are in remote. So I ran some calculations with Irene that we want to have available to us to leverage. So there's a mix of staffing costs in there, as well as basically then carrying the portion of those 14 positions we were allowed to up through January. And that's what's in there now.
Yeah.
So just to kind of round out that, and certainly that detail is always available to you. But again, you're not looking to hold out individual positions for scrutiny in the sense that you're talking about individuals and different coverages and stuff. So
Yes. So
she has all that detail.
Yeah. So in addition to 1.0 FTE positions, you've got 0.2, 0.1. So as Amber had indicated, it's pieces and parts of FTEs.
But we can leverage those against the grant. Like we're going to increase, I think, Matt Wilson PE by a 0.1 to cover a class section of remote as an example. So, you know, that we can put on the grant and carry and get some of that offset. The second part of that 0.1 would be negligible across the remainder part of the salary. We could, you know, do something to do some other cuts for offset. But some of those other positions, you're looking at the second 6 months of 14, you know, substantial positions that we have to plan forward for how we'll be covering that potential funding.
And all of these grants that I mentioned tonight have to have expenses where we didn't budget for in our regular budget.
Right.
So we can't supplant these with our regular budget.
So Irene's done a lot of good work on this, and we'll just take questions.
So I have a question about it expiring on December 31st, the expenses. So are we saying that there'll be potentially more grants through, you know, July 1st or, you know, June 30th to, you know, like I'm looking at the back end of the year and thinking, why would the teachers stop December 31st? They wouldn't.
Right.
But I also am wondering, when do we hear about this grant? And I'm afraid to ask about the offset because I just want to believe that the grant will come and all will be well until January 1st. And then
Right. So if you look at the expenditure of this 102 grant allots the 100 and the 850 basically, and that we will have fully expended. And that's why we pushed everything against that to fully expend it, which makes sense before we would spill over to the town umbrella grant that's inclusive of the municipal costs. And I would anticipate that potentially the second half of those salaries, if that grant extended, and that's the one, the municipal level grant, the 4,900 and the 4,800, which might, you know, continue. And then we would be able to push either a portion of that second 6 months of salaries onto that grant. That's the one, but we will have, it doesn't matter if the other one continues because we'll have fully expended our allotment. So they would have to come through with another new type of grant and a second dose of money. And I don't see that happening, but, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. I certainly will come forward to you with a range of proposals that Irene and I develop for ways to mitigate all of those options should the need arise.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you think we would hear about the 102 grant?
They didn't give us a time frame.
That's silly state.
I mean, that's a delineation of an amount we will get. So I'm not worried about that. Those are costs that will happen. We've applied for it. Those will come to us, and those are fine. I think, you know, moving forward, it's kind of continuing to rotate other costs against the other grants that exist that is really complex for us to manage with the town. And Leah's been great. Christy's been great. Irene and I've met with them. It's been very collaborative. Other questions? All right. I got one hop in there, Sarah.
I have one quick. I guess it's not a question, but maybe just going back to what Steve said about fails. Would anything be coming from the MSBA about building projects? I don't know if Steve probably looked into that, but just to not use our contingency and not sacrifice any of the project. Do you think anything?
Well, the quick answer is, you know, we've had questions in regards to funding relative to things that we've expended for COVID-19. And unfortunately, on the date that we had to answer, up to that point in time, we had no evidence of expenditure for anything, although we knew stuff was in the works, including what we talked about tonight. So far, we basically had nothing to report. If they have another opening later on relative to COVID, perhaps that will come, but we don't know that there's anything out there yet. We do know that many school districts have suffered increased costs because of the nature of the building economy right now, of which you know, some issues associated with the trades themselves in terms of things that the unions have required in order to come back to work eventually may show up in additional costs later on when we get to that stage in the building. So one of the things we do know about the MSBA is that their funding is a fixed percentage of the mass sales tax. And so they only spend money that has been put in their kitty. And so they can't all of a sudden decide to spend more money based on having already allocated all of that money for school construction, you know, as was. So these unknown charges, unfortunately for now, we have to eat them. There may be something that happens in the future, but at this point, it's all unknown. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. And sales tax revenue is probably down as well, so that probably won't help the situation later on either. But
yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I just think it was great to see that snapshot of the 102 grant and some of the things that we're looking to have funded, because it really gives you a picture of what it takes to reopen schools. And, you know, even thinking about, you know, card readers on exterior doors, like that's not anything I would have ever anticipated, but it totally makes sense. Thinking about taking kids outside. We have, you know, I saw Mr. G put out his video. He's doing a series of videos, and he put out a video showing kind of what the school looks like and showing some outdoor spaces that are like tucked along the building and different courtyards and stuff. And so it makes sense to have that additional, you know, layer of security going in and out of doors, but also, you know, making it easy for staff and students to move in and out. So that totally makes sense, and not anything, you know, we would ever think about or plan for. So it's good to see that, and all that stuff that's not budgeted for. It's just important to see what it takes.
Right.
Thank you for keeping track of all that, Irene, and you can keep us updated next week at our meeting about if you hear anything and the additional grants you're applying for.
I will.
All right, thank you. Thanks. All right, so we're still ahead of schedule, but we will move on to the next agenda item, which is looking at a draft of a new capital planning policy. And I had sent those documents to Andrea today to put in your packet. And the capital planning policy is contained within the town's comprehensive fiscal management policies, which are adopted by the Board of Selectmen. And Christy Williams, our town manager, and Kimberly Foster, our assistant town manager, have been working to streamline the capital planning policy and bring together all of the different areas of the town that have capital planning and trying to put it together in one big process that will help everyone know what's going on and be really strategic about the planning and the financial borrowing that goes with big projects in our town. So actually, Christy and Kim are attending the Advisory Finance Committee meeting tonight. Their meeting just started at 7, and Christy and Kim are on around 8. And they are sharing probably much better how same information I'm sharing with you. So if you wanted to go back and watch that recording, you could do that, tomorrow, just to get the details directly from Christy and Kim, who have been working on this. And I'm a new member to the town finance team because of, being chair of the school committee now. So we had a remote meeting early in August, and they were able to share these documents with me, which I think Daniel's going to put up there now. And this is a concept. So the idea of reworking and having a capital planning policy is to improve long-range planning town-wide. So it's a process to anticipate and to track all municipal projects so that boards can collaborate and be strategic in their long-range planning. And the idea is to stabilize the debt impact to the community. So we've heard a lot the past couple of years from our town manager about the debt load that the town is carrying and finding a way to stabilize it. And they had policies in order to stabilize the debt. So that the idea is that taxpayers don't get huge spikes in their tax bill, to try to keep it at a steady rate. So I think that this capital planning policy is a smart collaboration with the town. And as a school committee, we still would maintain our authority, but the idea is that we communicate and share with the town between all the boards and departments to kind of see what are the needs coming up, thinking, 5 years out, what would that look like, and having a plan and knowing that that plan is flexible so that if there's an emergency somewhere with a building or a grant comes up and someone gets that, we can shift projects around for what makes sense, always keeping an eye on the debt load and stabilizing that, the debt impact to the town. And then in addition to that actual policy document, that draft policy document that I shared with you, there's a plan to update the project request. They're calling them detail sheets that are submitted by department heads, and then that's shared with the capital expenditure planning committee. And ultimately, those will be included in the capital plan section of the annual budget document. But the sample request form shows the types of information that department heads will be asked to provide. The final look of that document might not be the draft that they shared, but it's just an idea to think about everyone sharing the same types of information so that you can, the town as a group can prioritize which projects we want to move forward with when. So some work will be done on that actual document. So I encourage you to look this over, send questions my way. And like I said, Christy and Kim are at the finance committee meeting tonight sharing about it. And then I think the plan would be for us to approve like the idea of this and to show our buy-in to this and our cooperation with thinking about a town-wide plan for this. So any questions that anyone wants to add about this or comments?
Yeah, I do. The charter requires that we have a capital expenditures committee, which you mentioned, that has this role. And all the stuff that you talked about is stuff that each of the department heads are supposed to create and send to the capital expenditures committee. So from the sounds of this, it sounds like a duplication, but maybe the intent is to modify the charter so that the issues that I just spoke of that are, within the bailiwick of the capital expenditure planning committee by charter, goes away or replaced by this process or whatever. Or maybe this is actually going to be, let's say, a modification of the way the current capital expenditures planning committee works. But just be aware that it's a duplication of what already exists.
I think, I was going to say, Steve, I think it's meant to streamline the process that's already in place. and to bring people together maybe earlier in the planning process. So I don't think it's replacing anything. I think it's an update to the process that's already there. Yeah.
It's, you know, the capital planning expenditure committee is looking at 5 years and more in terms of what its program is. The only issue that I think anybody had with it was that it really didn't start doing its work until maybe the last week in August and beginning of September, when all of us needed to have some kind of a draft budget into the Board of Selectmen approximately at that time, you know, for beginning the process for the fall town meeting. So what I'm really saying is that I believe the charter is going to have to change to deal with a more flexible, a deeper, more cogent process, I guess, to create this stuff. But all the words that you just said are all written in the charter for what the capital expenditure committee is supposed to do.
Yep.
So
yep.
I think the problem is that it doesn't include, you know, the new hierarchy within the system that is now transpired. But, you know, in theory, the process that exists in the town is supposed to take place at those functions defined in the charter, of which the finance committee is supposed to be one of them. You know, and they're supposed to, you know, do exactly what we're talking about, and instead of it being, you know, literally inside closed doors, which is what this process is, and then explained on the town meeting floor as to how we got to where we got. Anyway, I'm just making this comment. It'll obviously get worked out in terms of one goes away, the other one replaces it, or it gets melded together, or whatever the thing turns out to be.
Yeah, I think to complement that, Steve, I think it's an updated enhancement of process of the existing committee to play off the committee's strengths and the work that has always been done, but bringing more depth and process to it in some of the pieces. And I think you're right. I think it'll play out and stage forward through discussions such as these to make sure we pick up all the pieces and come out with something that gives a little more depth to that work and enhances it. So I think I have positive hopes for, I think, the way it'll play out, hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because the purview of what's just been discussed, let's say emanating from the Board of Selectmen through the town manager, is not the way this system was designed to work. Not to say that it shouldn't go that way, but you know, the current system doesn't perceive this process that has been in effect, you know, on the table now for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think even like you and I have spoken over the years about the focus of that committee shifts more and more towards, since they gave it an expenditure of funds, which is not a large amount of money, to a focus on just expending those short-term funds before town meeting when we're in the middle of the budget development, as opposed to some of that big umbrella trajectory of planning against, you know, understanding where projects will come forward and when they should come forward from different boards. So I think it's going to meld the two together and take the expertise of the group, which I think there's good expertise on that group, to look at just kind of a bigger planning window. So I think, you know, again, like, as you've often said, the projects that need to be discussed are too big to even fit at that table, and how they fit together into a trajectory. I think there's some good things to do there. So
yeah, and in fact, that is you know, one of the drawbacks of the current capital expenditure committee, which is the budget that they actually can evaluate. You know, is targeted at a certain percentage of the total town budget, which in round numbers is somewhere around $800,000, and that they can in effect rule on and create, you know, the pecking order for what would go before the town meeting. So that roughly that's what's in Article 8 of the annual town meeting, being equipment for the town. Whereas we have needs, let's say for the Hastings school, you know, maybe 3 times that, between 2 or 3 different warrant articles. And so you're absolutely right that it's a different animal, even though it says it does the same thing.
Exactly. And I think it echoes a lot of the discussion and trajectory of the kinds of projects that we need in order to care for multiple, whatever it is, the total of number of buildings that exist that are municipal buildings, ours and theirs combined, the care we bring to our school committee side of it and then the municipal side. But being able to say, okay, we've got, you know, $1 million rim project of the roof at the high school. Where does it fall on the planning table against library and other, like those large discussions? We've made so much progress on them, and I think putting a shape around them is going to be really exciting to empower that committee to do some bigger work.
Yeah. So it's a work in progress. We'll see how it all comes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be good. I'm excited.
Well, it's a work in progress, but it's good that people are trying to think about doing things in a different way or an updated way to kind of meet the needs of our town. It's growing and our buildings are getting older. And so it's good to have a new process to think about. So if you read through that document, any questions come up, send them my way. And then I will connect back to find out what the next steps are with that. Like I said, they're meeting with the finance committee tonight, so more information should be coming out of that meeting as well. All right, so we're still ahead of schedule. I don't know how we did it, but here we are. We'll move to a transportation update. So this, again, you know, a lot of the work that Irene heads up is behind the scenes work in order to make school open smoothly. And so one of them is transportation, and we have a new transportation company, and Irene and I know Lisa's been in on some of those meetings. And so there's a lot to update everyone about transportation.
Yeah, so we meet weekly with NRT. Lisa's at those meetings. Like I said last time, different individuals who have an interest in the topic that we might be talking about at that particular meeting joins us. Like, for instance, Johanna was at the meeting the time before, and she'll be at the one, I believe, this week. And she's going to give an update about athletics, and we'll be meeting with her there. And that's on Wednesday. And then I asked to get a demonstration for Here's the Bus. That's the parent app tracking where the bus is. It's a different product, and it doesn't do certain things and does things differently, my understanding. So I asked for a demo just to know what the product looks like. And so that's this Friday. So Lisa, I believe you're on that invite. And if you're not, let me know and I'll make sure they invite you. So we're excited about that, to see what that looks like. So I got an update from Cindy. She's the transportation coordinator, and she indicated that from the parent survey results, 75 of the parents did not respond or choose their choice of whether they ride the bus or they're being homeschooled or remote or the parents are driving them. But of the 3,830, 1,700 are choosing to ride on the bus. 947 are homeschooled and remote. 1,059 are parents driving their children to school. And then, like I said, 75 have not chosen what option they're going to do. So in knowing these numbers, it now provides us the opportunity to put students into the cohorts and what buses they'll be on, what routes they'll have. The transportation company has been working on it and going a little, they're very calm about it, but it's very different routing this year. So, and being a new company for this town, they're doing that. A lot of it is manual. A lot has to do with sending the data over to TransFinder, which is the transportation software. And it's a very complex system, and It's nationwide in a lot of school districts, so they're getting inundated with these new ways of schooling, and which affects the transportation. So they anticipate they're going to need another week to get this all settled in. Cindy's doing pretty good. She's got the Navy and Cardinal students identified on a spreadsheet that she has. We're anticipating that we would have the routes up very soon thereafter. And we're thinking it won't identify Navy and Cardinal because it makes it more complicated and somewhat confusing. So we're still working that out, but we'll definitely have the routes on the website for the parents to see. And so we're limiting the students to 21 students per bus, per big bus. And we're finding that in some cases, there's only 1 or 2 students on the bus. There's only 14. So that may be, we may be able to allow some creativity with reducing certain buses going to certain areas. Maybe we can combine the bus for certain routes. And we do have a complex that's the largest ridership of 70 students at that complex. So we may need to bring, several buses up there. But other than that, for the most part, we're down in ridership on each of these buses. So we're prepared so that if a family changes from remote to then, or from driving their student to riding the bus, there's the capacity to do it. So again, the meeting's Wednesday. If any of you want to participate or listen in, you're welcome to, or think of anyone that might benefit from this at this point, just let me know. And that's my update. Oh, and the drivers, I'm being told the drivers are very excited about going over to NRT. And they're going to be choosing their routes very soon, and they're excited. So last week they're doing things for the NRT is doing some positive things for them, just having fun, bringing them to, so that they're a team and have the team feeling. Last Friday, they put up a portable outdoor screen to do a drive-in movie theater for them. And then they were having a contest of either dress up in your most elaborate dress or dress up your car. And then that was a contest. So it's fun to hear that they're doing this for them and keeping the energy going.
That's great. Thank you.
That's so great. Yeah, we love our bus drivers. And I had heard that we had like the highest retention rate, meaning our drivers want to come back and drive for us. Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and some of them they used to be 7D drivers. All of them went over to get more certification to drive the minibuses. So, and they were excited about getting into a yellow bus, thinking it would be safer for them. And so it's all positive.
That's really great. And I heard our new buses are beautiful.
Brand
modern.
new. Brand new, yes.
So it's gonna look great. I can't wait to see them rolling through the town. It's gonna look awesome.
Very exciting. It's a big change to have a new company, and I'm
We used to ask them, we used to ask our last company, what are you doing for your drivers? What are you doing for the culture of our drivers? And we never heard that there was a drive-in movie, night or things like that, really going a little above and beyond to say we care about you as our employees.
Yeah. And I think we'll try to make sure we're taking care of them as well, welcoming them back and doing some of that caregiving. So I think there's good things ahead. So
I do have a quick question, and I don't know that you would have the answer right now, but just when I hear the numbers, and just to remind people that it's half of those numbers. Half of those numbers would be driving, half of those numbers would be on buses per day. And yes, we have some students who may have some types of transportation in different ways on Friday. But for the most part, when I think about traffic for our town, I am curious what number of students used to drive to school, and is it equivalent to the 530? And I think people will ask whether we're causing a traffic jam, and I'm not sure that we are. 530 is actually not as big of a number as I was thinking would happen when we talked about, when we were asked, will you have your child take the bus or not? So, but it is something to think about, and for people around to think about how they're going to change their times or not. It may not have an impact at all.
I think traffic patterns are going to be really varied this year because you also have people that are working from home on the days when they're kids, and you have more people that are still in some flex scheduling. So it'll be really interesting to see. And again, I think the moving of the high school time was a benefit as well. I mean, so we'll just wait and see. It's going to be very interesting.
Yep.
And that's good to know that the numbers, that you're keeping it at 21 per bus, per big bus, knowing that there may be students who, for whatever reason have to take a bus a certain day, or parents are, planning on driving. But, I know that a lot of parents are waiting to return back to work. And so right now they're working from home and they probably figure maybe I can drive them. But then if they return to work, they're going to rely on the bus. So we understand that there will be, people who said they're going to use the bus but won't use it every day and vice versa. So that's good to know that there's flexibility there and new students and stuff. Yeah.
The whole year is going to feel like that, just trying to figure out how much movement there is, Yep. I mean, and then during this year, we've had up around, I haven't gotten the most recent count from Donna, but over 175 new students enrolled. So, you have all this movement that's typical, like folding in. It's very busy.
Yeah. Thank you for the update.
I've also looked at a review of Here Comes the Bus, which is the app, just to get a sense of what's going on around us at other school systems that have been using Here Comes the Bus. And it is really a mix, either loved or not loved. And it seems to be glitchy, but so was our last app. So I'm not that surprised to hear that. It'll be interesting to see the training and adjust our expectations of what the app can do and how it would be utilized. So I look forward to that. And I don't think I'm on that invite, but add me later.
Okay. Definitely.
All right. Thank you for all that work on transportation. Okay, so moving on, we are going to look at a new school year calendar and a supplementary parent calendar that has been created to help us keep all of this straight. And I know a lot of people have reached out to us, like a lot of parents have reached out to us saying, like, where's the new calendar? The website says we're starting school September 2nd. Like, what is going on? And we just cannot, we voted the first day of school and that's that. We just did not have time to iron all this out yet, but I think Daniel has a plan for us.
I have a plan. So, like Elizabeth Warren, I have lots of plans. I got plans. No, we've talked about this all together and tried to, as we have this phased reopening. So there's questions about that, and then there's questions about once we are fully reopened, what that's going to look like. So here's a draft of what we've come up with, and part of the reason we haven't released it is because we wanted to have the school committee take a look at it and have your input on it. And so I'm going to share with you the screen, and I will walk you through the supplemental calendar first. So 1 second here. Okay, the supplemental document is here, and this is taken directly from the report, which is once we are fully open, a standard week for all of the different cohorts and groupings would look like this, where for the hybrid cardinal group is the first row, if you will. You would see every Monday and every Wednesday, cardinals in person, every Tuesday, every Thursday, they're working independently at home. And then on Friday, they're at home working remotely in the morning. Now, the exact opposite for the hybrid: on Monday, they're at home, Tuesday, they're at school, Wednesday, they're at home, Thursday, they're at school. And then on Friday, we bring together the Cardinal and the Navy together will be working remotely. So they have a chance for the teachers to have those two cohorts meeting on the virtual space. So that's the hybrid model. The third row down is the standalone remote, which of course they're at home working remotely every day, and Friday in the morning, and for the AM. And then there's our high need students and complex learners who would be coming in person Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday eventually for half the day. And so that's the general schedule that starting in October we will be using, and parents would want to refer to. Now, as you know, we have the month of September is a basically mixed start for the hybrid students, in large part to get the students to meet one another online and meet their teachers online without masks on. And Amber and I were just talking about how important we felt it was to do this in the last week with our new teachers, to actually see and interact online. Who would think it would feel more personal in some ways, but it does, to be able to see their faces. And then they came in the next day and we met them in person and talked with them for orientation. And it was very, very beneficial to have that time. So the first week, when students come back on the first day, now again, we're just talking about the hybrid students, Cardinal and Navy students would work from home and will be online with their teachers on the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th. So Cardinal and Navy students get to meet each other online. They get to meet their teachers online and interact, masks off, and then they get to hear what the expectations are in terms of their curriculum. They get to know one another in terms of ice-breaking kinds of activities. They get to understand what school is going to look like and be explained how their class is going to operate when they come physically into the building. And then we will do this starting on the 21st, A through L, Cardinal students. So with the last name starting with A through L will come in. So those Cardinal students come in, all other Cardinal students and all Navy students work at home independently on that Monday, the 21st. And then on Tuesday, Navy A through L, then all other Navy students and all Cardinal students are working independently at home. And then on Wednesday, the 23rd, Cardinal M through Z, get the pattern here, I'm sure. The 24th, Navy M through Z. And then we are going to finish that week with a full school day on the 25th, where Cardinal A through L comes in. And on the following week, when we have a holiday on the 28th, we're going to then pick up on Tuesday and go Navy A through L, Cardinal M through Z, and then Thursday, Navy M through Z. And basically, if you look at our calendar from the 21st to the 1st of October, from the 21st of September to the 1st of October, each of the groups, A through L and M through Z, will have gotten 2 days in school to, in this reduced, like 1/4 of the students are in. And then they're all brought together for a half day on Friday the 2nd. And then that brings closure to this structure, and basically there's conversation that gets them ready to come into the full hybrid the next week. So then what would happen would be this starting in on the, I guess it would be the 5th, is that right? So it would be 3rd, 4th, 5th, October 5th, everything goes back to it starts going, and we use this model here, and parents just will follow this model so long as there's no holiday during the week. And if there is a holiday in October, November, December, that falls in the middle of the week, the third page here explains what we will do. So parents and the school committee were concerned, and so were we, to make sure that because of holidays at the end of the school year, Cardinal and Navy get equal amounts of learning time face-to-face with their teachers. And so with the exception of that, that there's the Cardinal 1/4 cohort that's coming in on 9/25. So that's just to even out the 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. But then starting in October, what's going to happen is you can see here, we've got in October and November, there's a lot of holidays, and the teachers do need to have those half days to be able to do some planning. We did not want to take away all of their half days or that many half days in the beginning of the school year by having makeup days on Friday, but we will do some makeup days. And so basically this says in-person days that are missed due to a holiday on the dates for these particular holidays are going to be made up here whenever there's a date. So the Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day here will not be made up, so as to let the teachers have a half day. So Cardinal will miss Monday, and then on 11/3, when Navy misses, they will then come, they're going to miss Tuesday, they're going to come in on Friday 11/6 for the full day. And then on 11/11, when Cardinal misses for a day coming in, they're going to come in that Friday. So basically, Navy misses one, comes in, Cardinal misses one, comes in, Navy misses one here, and we're going to treat it like the other NA up here that Cardinal had, and we're not going to make it up. And then Navy's going to miss Christmas Eve day here on the 24th, but they're going to make it up the week before on a Friday on the 18th. And Cardinal is going to miss Martin Luther King Day. They'll make it up on the 22nd. Navy's going to miss a PD day on the Tuesday, 3/2. They'll come in on 3/5. And then finally, Memorial Day, Cardinal's going to miss, and then they're going to come in on 6/4 to make that up. So this is a way of evening it out, and the calendar itself has been remade so that it takes out our half days that were scattered through the year, because now we know that every Friday is going to be a half day, with the exception of when the Cardinal or the Navy are coming in person on a Friday. And those are highlighted here. You can see the key down at the bottom says Cardinal in person or Navy in person. So the first time that a Friday is going to be an exception is September 25th, when the Cardinal cohort, that 1/4 is going to come in. And then in November, you can see Friday the 6th for Navy, Friday the 13th for Cardinal, December 18th for Navy, January 22nd for Cardinal, March 5th for Navy, and then June 4th for Cardinal. And then in green are our holidays for any time that or events where school closes down.
Can you swap
So
that
Danielle,
can you
we
swap
can't see that.
Can you
Yeah, we
swap
can't.
over that calendar? I think you just forgot to switch to the main calendar.
You guys just let me talk all the time?
No, it's okay. We were coming in. It's good. Just swap
It's fine. Just
over.
put it. We got it. Now put it
Yeah,
up,
we
and
got it.
we'll
We got it.
reflect.
There we
Don't- you can stop talking.
Okay.
We'll look.
Blow it
Yeah.
over.
So sorry, you have to, I forgot, like there's different settings in like Google Meet. So you have to say share this tab. So I'm like looking at the tab and I'm thinking you came right along with me.
I know you didn't.
Can you
So
see
we're
it
good.
now?
Yes, we can. You have to blow it bigger
You can.
though.
Yeah, can you make it a little bigger?
Big, big, big. Make it
I
bigger.
can do that. So what I was pointing to in the was down here. There's a key on the bottom, cardinal in person at the very bottom, navy in person at the very bottom, and then that is like the Friday exceptions are highlighted by color. So September 25th, cardinal, November 6th, navy, November 13th, cardinal. Those are full day in-person exceptions for those groups that are on those Fridays. So anytime a parent, has a child, has a Friday that they need their kids to come get picked up on the bus and come in for a full day, it's highlighted on this calendar. That way, I think it's fairly clear. We didn't think it made sense to take every Monday and every Wednesday and color code them on this calendar.
Yeah, no.
It would have just been confusing. So parents can like basically look at, now I'm going to, let's see, share this tab. I'm going to go back here. Parents should know this calendar here.
Right.
And then they see the exceptions are going to be on this calendar. And those are the two calendars they basically need with the, but they also have to follow the September gradual start calendar. So I understand people will get confused. We probably will need to explain it a few times, but I do think it's, these documents are the closest that I've come. So it's a draft and I'm completely willing to remake them. But, this is nothing like we've done before. So we're trying to make it as clean and clear as possible. So
I like it, Daniel. I think the other piece about that is you have to remember you have building-based leadership and classroom teachers that are going to be very clear with kids across different ages that need that support. Like, we'll see you tomorrow for your cardinal day or whatever. Like, they'll make them little cues and stuff. I have a lot of confidence that our staff is so good at this kind of thing. They're not going to send kids home confused about what they're doing tomorrow. So I think that the rhythm for that will become automatic, and we'll just work with our principals to make sure that classroom teachers based upon age and student need are exactly clear on what their next day will be. And I think parents should be able to read this pretty easily.
And I do like how the holidays and the days off of school are in bright green. And that's really important for anyone in the standalone or remote program, because they're at home all the time and you could just get into a groove of logging on every day. And so this will be like, yeah, you have a day off because it's a holiday that we're celebrating, or it's a day off for professional development. So that makes it really clear to kind of see where those spots are where instruction won't be happening those days. So I envision families having multiple calendars up at the start of the school year to kind of get the rhythm. But this makes it clear to me, sort of highlighting a change. You should know your schedule, and this will highlight, the calendar will highlight a change to that.
Right.
It's good. Any other comments or questions from the school committee?
I would also highlight, go ahead, Sarah. One suggestion though, I would also highlight the wording portion where it says 11-16 Navy in-person full day. I'd also color code that so that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think he's talking about where it's written in text.
Yeah.
Where it's written,
I'd
code that as well.
Hmm.
So it just shows up twice.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Raghu might be a visual learner.
No,
I am too.
I love that.
I
was just about to say that Daniel's the calendar master, but Raghu added that, and that was exciting. I think that it's amazing that it took a global pandemic to get rid of all those random half days. So I think people will actually, I think this flows, and the random half days that popped up when who knew there was a half day on a Tuesday, I think it'll be nice to not have that happening. But what I'm going to say is I hope we can get this all on the website for everyone, and also an email maybe to families, obviously, because I got this earlier today and I was already writing in my calendar what days my kids were going, and that felt really good. So I think other people might want to be able to do that too as soon as possible. So if we can get this out, that would be great.
Did you feel, Sarah, that it was clear enough without like the way it was presented to you when you got it?
Yeah, when I got it today, yes, I definitely did. I got my calendar right out. I was still right on a big old paper calendar, and I wrote it right down right away. I figured it out. So I think
we can send it out. You know, we can send it out tomorrow. We can put it on the website tomorrow.
Yeah, as soon as we have it voted, guys, we'll press it out with an update.
I will say it is, it's complicated to look at first, but as soon as you read it, if you take your big calendar, the one that's up there now, and you just circle the days that your child is going to school as you're reading the hybrid schedule for September, and you're circling on the bigger calendar, it's going to, you never have to read it again. And so it is busy looking, but when you read it through, you'll understand it. As long as you know if you're Cardinal or Navy, and it is very clear which way you're going on each day, the entire month of September and the first 2 days of October. So I thought that was, I think it's good. I did want to ask about the religious holiday, since so much time was spent on the calendar process a couple of years ago. I just wanted to ask whether the holiday calendar in terms of homework and only because the state also just came up with, their own calendar of holidays just a couple of weeks ago. And it was sort of interesting to see we were ahead of that. But I just wanted to know whether that's all still in process this year. Is that true?
It's created. I felt I was pacing myself. I'm building up parent stamina for how many calendars they can get all at once. So my intent was that this one goes out first, and the other one that is ready to go, actually. And internally we already have it on our calendars when homework can't be assigned, and when homework can be due. But that calendar is very clear and will go to parents. And I know the Jewish holidays are coming up, so it needs to go out soon. Yes. So the question is, yes.
And there were
I don't know. I don't feel like it would be good to put it out all tomorrow. I could space it by a week, maybe.
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
I just wanted to make sure it was still out there in terms of the level ones, level twos, level threes, or whatever we called it.
Yeah, that whole culture of that work will remain.
Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other I wanted to bring up is some people have asked me about alternative learning days. And I want to remind everyone out there who's listening, there's no such thing as alternative learning days anymore. The state ended alternative learning days back in 2020, as in 2019, 2020 was the last year that one could use alternative learning days for snow days. Now, who knows, that could change based on there being much more access in districts across the state. You never know, but at this time I searched for it just to see if there was any question about it. At this time, there is no such thing as an alternative structured learning day.
I'd like to suggest, however, if, first of all, kids deserve snow days.
I agree.
And so do parents. And so if we have a snow day, I think it's a fun thing to have now and then. I feel it's like a belief in New England to have that kind of thing. But I would say if we have that the school committee, and this is up for you guys to debate, but I think we could adjust the hybrid model to say that the hybrid model goes to remote learning if there's more than X number of school, snow days. And something of that sort. I mean, Amber and I can talk it through and in terms of how to propose that, but I do think that, if we're using hybrid, remote, etc., I do think it's feasible.
It's on the list for discussion kind of further down the road. So we definitely will bring it back for a discussion.
Because there is fluidity between the models, and that's
Yeah, and it has to do with when certain days, almost like we did before, we did a mix where if one was going to roll you over to ending a lot later. And so we'll look at that when we get open and we just get a couple days under our belt. But yeah, definitely.
only bringing up calendar.
Remind me when she said roll between the models. So obviously I know for planning purposes, this is very well thought out with the Navy and the Cardinal and all that. And I know everyone remote is remote, but if by some miracle we could go back in full, we throw this calendar out the window and go back to our traditional calendar or obviously figure that out at some point as well, right?
Yeah, I think one step at a time. But yes, each stage is designed against our current needs and then will be reevaluated as we step forward.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it'll be important for everyone, no matter how any student is starting the school year, to be aware of all of the school calendars, because it might be that you want to make a decision for your child to switch into a hybrid or switch out to go all remote, and it'll just be important to be aware of when that's happening and the changes and knowing all of that. A quick question that I just got from somebody: will Fridays always be half days in the standalone remote program, even for weeks with holidays? I'm assuming that's a yes.
Yeah, those are half-day remotes because that's professional development in the afternoon.
And so even if there's a Monday holiday,
Yep.
those will stay.
Yes.
Yeah, because those teachers are definitely going to need that collaboration time in the afternoon.
Correct.
Right. They'll do a half day like the hybrid kids.
Yeah.
So the hybrids are getting an equal split. Everybody has to get the same. So the remote kids will get the same as the hybrid kids in that day. And then all of the professional staff can collaborate in the afternoon.
Yep. They'll still be like the
Yes.
same amount of instruction.
So
Even if there's a Monday holiday and the kids go 4 full days, just keep it a half day.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't want to say yes and be wrong. So thanks.
So I guess I want to understand that too. So when there's a Monday holiday and we do have an exception where let's say the Cardinal goes to Friday, is that a full day of school or half day?
I think it's a good point. I mean, like if the faculty are engaged full day on those days with the
with the remote
cohorts
program
that are coming in, right? With the hybrid, if the hybrid faculty is working a full day on those, 5 or so exceptions,
Right.
then I would think the remote faculty could do the same.
Right. They would use that day, not the day of the week where it would be that they have to stay parallel. So they would do their full day when we have that flipped Friday where it's a full day. They will get the same amount as we go. We can clarify that.
Okay, so that's a clarification. So all Fridays are not half days in the remote program. There will be a few full Fridays when cohorts of kids are going in full. There will be a full remote day.
Right, because we'll keep them parallel. The amount of instructional time will be the same.
And somehow, can we add that somewhere on all those documents,
Sure,
Daniel, that you're going to send out somewhere? There's a place to maybe in some sort of note on there about that.
Yep.
Didn't come up with a new color.
No, you just have to put it at the bottom of that full day Friday. It'll just be you'd be RLP full day that same day. Just put it at the bottom of that calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So that's easy.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for the question and thank you for that clarification. That makes sense. So, yep. Okay. So I think that we should take a vote on this new school year calendar in addition to the supplementary parent calendars that Daniel shared for us with the updates that he's going to make to that. So is there a motion for this new school year calendar?
I'll move the motion to approve the new school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Sarah.
Chudley, yes.
Raghu.
Nandan, yes.
Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve.
Durant, yes.
All right, and Vincent, yes. So that's 5-0 to approve a new school year calendar. Thank you for all your work on that, Danielle, and for all of trying to make it be clear. I know it's like an unclear process, and trying to make it clear is tricky. And I think, you know, it really will be up to families to create a calendar schedule that works for you. So like Lisa said, if you want to print the full district calendar and go and highlight the days that apply to your child, you can do that. You want to do your own paper and pencil like Sarah does and have it hanging up in the kitchen, the master plan, you can do that. I do mine digital, so it all goes into my phone, and then I know what day is going on. So it's going to be up to families to really keep track of that. But our faculty is great in reminding everyone and keeping everyone on track, so they'll help the students understand that too. All right, great. I'm glad that we can check that off our list and have a new school year calendar ready to go up on the website and out to families. The next agenda item is vote to appoint a delegate and an alternate delegate to the MASC 2020 annual meeting. So this is a conference that we participate in and attend annually. It's usually held on the Cape in the fall, in November usually. And this year they're going to do it virtually. So there will be like workshops and things I think that they'll run, but the main event happening at this conference is the annual meeting of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, where they're voting in new officers and adopting policies and things like that. So MASC requires that member districts each year appoint a delegate to vote at the annual meeting in November, and MASC also suggests that an alternate delegate also be appointed. I'm going to put forth the first motion, and I'm going to say that I'd like to put forward a motion that Steve Jarrett be voted in as our delegate to the MASC 2020 annual meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second Steve as our delegate for the meeting. Thank you. Sarah?
All right. Any discussion about that?
Good choice.
Steve is historically our delegate, and I think he's perfect in that role. So
we're assuming that this meeting is going to probably be remote, since I mean that's a huge volume of people that usually like thousands of people who go down there. So I'm assuming it's going to be remote.
It'll be remote. It'll be a virtual annual meeting. Yeah.
Typically like the first week in November, I think.
Yeah, and I think they've already announced that it's going to be remote anyway. So, all right. So let's do a roll call vote for that. We'll start with Sarah.
Dulé, yes.
Raghu.
Nandan, yes.
Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve.
Correct, yes. And
from-
I'll be able to reduce my expenditures, as Irene can attest from previous.
That's right. And Vincent, yes. So that's 5-0, and I am so pleased to have Steve as our delegate again this year. And also, we need to appoint an alternate delegate in the case that we need one.
I'd like
So,
to move that
go ahead,
Kristen be our alternate delegate.
All right. Is there a second?
Perfect. I'll second that one. Sarah again.
Great. Any discussion?
Another good choice.
I'm happy to do it. Happy to log on. I'm also happy to go to the Cape if they change their mind and want to have it down there again. Great. So let's do a roll call vote for that. We'll start with Sarah.
Dulé, yes.
And Raghu.
Nandan, yes.
Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve.
Correct, yes.
All right. And me, Vincent, yes, 5-0. So happy to do that. Thank you. And then one of the final things we need to do tonight is vote the chair to annually review and approve previously held executive session meeting minutes for release. And there is an expectation of open meeting law that a periodic review of executive session minutes be conducted to determine whether the purpose for which they have been held has passed and they can now be released. So sometimes we take executive session minutes and we hold them because they may contain confidential information. So this vote will authorize the chair, that's me, to annually undertake this review. So is there a motion for this?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Sarah.
Dulé, yes.
Raghu,
London, yes.
Lisa,
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve.
Right, yes.
All right, and Vincent, yes. So that's 5-0, and I'm happy to take on that responsibility. I'll work with Andrea on those minutes. And I just want to remind everyone, our next meeting is Wednesday, September 9th. So we'll be right back here next week and have more on what our staff's been working on, and more updates to the school year, in addition to having some guest speakers to share with us what's happening. So at this time, I'd like to move to executive session. Is there someone who can make the motion for us? Does anyone have it in front of them?
I can read it. I have it.
All right, thanks.
I move to go into executive session. Vote to meet an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, custodians, school lunch workers, and under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22G, 2, Purpose 7, to review and approve executive session minutes.
All right, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. We'll start with Sarah.
Dulé, yes.
Raghu,
London, yes.
Lisa,
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve,
Right, yes.
and Vincent, yes, 5-0. So we are in executive session. Thank you for joining us tonight.